Okay, so thanks for the organization for having me here. As a Maradona fan, for me it's wonderful to be here in Napoli. And yeah, today we are going to talk about piracy. Who has downloaded copyrighted content anytime in your life? Yeah. The ones who didn't raise your hands, you're fucking liars. Okay, for the ones who don't know me, I've been for a lot of years in the broadcasting and the video industry. I'm working as a consultant, so if you want my services, we can chat about it. As Lorenzo said, I teach at the Pompeu Fabra University in Barcelona. I also organize the Barcelona Videotech Meetup, so if you are ever in the city, I really invite you to join our meetups. I'm supporter of the best club in the world, which is the Football Club Barcelona. And I have a huge vinyl collection. I love music, and I also love the retro video games. So, where does the piracy starts? It starts with Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. So, the story is that in the 18th century, there was one musical piece which the Vatican held on the scores, and it was only played on the Holy Week. So Mozart was doing a tour in Italy, and he went there, and by listening to the musical piece, he wrote down the notes on a musical score. And the funny story is that then the Pope said, "Oh, that's cool. This guy is a genius." And then the score was open to everybody. In following the audio, and you will see later why I start talking about audio. The piracy starts when the domestic tape recorders arrived. It's fun because it was like a huge improvement of the technology to have now the magnetical tapes rather than the vinyls. But this also started people to having several videotapes, and when they played with one, they hacked the audio output and start recording in other ones. The video industry was exactly the same. When the videotape recorders arrived, it's when people were buying like two videotape recorders, patching the video output, and starting to pirate the video content. So as we have seen, there's a kind of pattern that the things happen first in music or in audio and then in video. In internet, it's exactly the same. This guy, Ben Glover, he was a guy working at Polygram in the US, and he loved the computers and everything, and he started to, when the MP3 arrived, he started to rip the musical CDs, even promotional or internal copies before they went even to market, and he was uploading everything to the internet. This was really something that it broke the musical industry, and later the Napster arrived and more platforms where people were using peer-to-peer protocols to share the music. And it's like, I think it was the time when the musical industry was almost going to bankruptcy. Like this was something really huge. It broke everything. And how was the answer by the industry? The DSPs, the digital service providers, iTunes. Steve Jobs met with several C-level people from the music industry. They discussed about how to face this, how can we solve it, and it's iTunes was the first, but nowadays we all know the companies like Spotify, Tidal, and etc. So in video was exactly the same. When there was like this new technology, the new codec, the DVX and the XBit, people started to rip DVDs to have digitalized movies that you can fit them in a CD. Even the video CD already existed, but people were ripping from the DVDs in a nice quality. Then we have the infamous Kim.com. which he started to open Mega Bloat, and then there were more services like Rapid Share, CP Share. It was completely illegal what he was doing, but this is the fun story that we need to thank him, because thanks to the trials he won, we have now cloud storage storing services like Google Cloud, like Google Drive, Dropbox. We have all of that thanks to King.com. And the next step was also the peer-to-peer thing, to do it directly with torrents, and it's exactly the same as the music industry. And repeating the pattern, the solution from the industry was exactly the same: to build a digital service provider, in this case, Netflix. The story is a bit more trickier. The story with Blockbuster, they were going to bankruptcy, they were looking for alternatives, but finally it was the same. Like the solution from the video industry was to create a digital service provider. So now, if we got into streaming, the first illegal streams came with the XBMC, which nowadays is Kodi, and it was the same. It was a peer-to-peer service where you start to broadcast, and the users get the chunks, but they also upload it to other users. But it was the same. So, excuse me. How is the industry fighting the piracy? Well, first thing they try is to do hardware solutions, but this is obviously something that it doesn't work. In this photo, this is a setup from a Greek guy in Amsterdam who has emails from me from my corporate mail, because we were trying to get some. It's another story I can tell you later, but this was his setup. He was serving like, I don't know, it was thousands of accounts in all Europe. Like, he had all the TVs, and as you can see, it was digital signal from satellite that he had. He was hacking the cards. So even the industry sometimes think about the hardware solution. The problem of a hardware solution is that if you get hacked, you cannot change the hardware. That's why it's so trickier. So when we go to the IBC and the NAB and we see like these big stands of Irdeto, V-Access, and all of that, they have a lot of money, but it's not useful. And especially there are countries that, like China and Russia, that they have a specific view of copyright, and you can get direct IPTV links from China. And what they are doing, they are hacking the system. So they are all hacked already. So when we talk about software, it's the same. What's the problem of the DRM? Well, it works pretty well, but it's the same thing. You get hacked, you cannot turn it back, because you have already implemented, you have all your servers or your licensed servers and everything. And well, we don't have anybody from Google here, no? Okay, yeah, because Whitevine is broken already. So it's the same thing. It works pretty well most of the times. Or, for example, the Apple Fair Play has never been hacked. It's a mix, because it has also like something in hardware and no in Apple devices and the iPhones and all of that. But the problem also is that if you are a service provider and you serve content to different devices, sometimes it's the same as the codec wars. There's also the DRM war. So if you are serving something to Chrome or Android, you need the wideband. It's for Apple, the Fairplay, and that. So this also, when you have a DRM implemented, it's more cost to the API for the licenses. So this involves latency and costs. I mean, it's a solution, it can work, but you are really exposed, more than what you think. The way also the industry fights, when they want to go against something, they go with all the resources. It's like the people who has the power against the small ones. I have here a case study. This was a company in Spain that what they were doing, they were putting links to access all the sports. So what the industry did against them was fighting legally and illegally. Legally, they put a lot of effort on lawyers. They were hiring like the best lawyers in Spain to go against them, especially in this case, the football content owners at that time. But also illegally, they hired an Israeli company who did DDoS attacks, the denial of service, against the website when there was a big important match. So this is like, okay, if what they do is illegal, if I do something illegal, they are not going to go against me. Like, that was their reasoning, and that's something they tried. Finally, the website was closed, but then it opened again. And I mean, they spent a lot of money and effort, and it didn't work. Also, the La Liga, which is the company that has that are running the football league in Spain, which it's like a big conglomerate with a lot of money and power. Here is another thing they do, and this was illegal, and they got them problems. What they were doing is that they had like a special app with results, video interviews, and stuff like that. And when you download something, it asks you for permissions. So one permission was microphone. So what they did is when there was a football match, they started to record audio chunks to everybody, every user of the app, and then send it internally to see, also with metadata of your location, because you also gave that permit to. So they were that to understand which bars were playing were playing on the TV, the football match, without paying. Because especially here in Europe, if you broadcast sports in a public place, you need to pay like something more expensive. It's different, and they get a lot of bars, but they got condemned to pay a big fine of, I think it was 200,000 euro. And obviously, this was completely illegal. But as I said, sometimes I spoke with someone who worked in La Liga Tech, and he told me that in their head, they do it like to show power, like you pirate me, but I'm going to fight against you. But they had, for example, another thing they do that it was legal and really cool, that in this specific TV channel for the bars, they played an advertise like, we are going to invite you a beer. Send us a picture of the ticket, and the next one is on us. So people started to take the pictures of the ticket, and if they received tickets from a bar that was not paying them, they knew that they were playing that. It was completely legal. It's legal and fun. So, what's the current status? Nowadays, it's more easy than ever to get illegal content. Specifically, what people are most trying to get is sports, because it's something normally expensive, and it's also that people like. Nowadays, you can directly download apps where you have all IPTV links, and you can get everything. And you can get also, as I said, in China, they have a peculiar view of the copyright. So they send IPTV decoders that already have access to IPTV list where you can access all the content. And what they do is they cut you after 1 year, so you need to buy another hardware next year. Another issue, which is really fun, first one is that nobody understands, and we were discussing yesterday about this. Nobody knows about the rights. If I ask you, how many of you know about neighboring rights, mechanical rights, and synchronization rights? Anybody in the audience? One? As you see, there's a lack of education, and people don't understand when they pirate if they are really harming the industry or the content providers or people who they really like. But also on the same side, The big companies, they are not transparent. You don't know, for example, if there's a movie, who gets the money, how much money is distributed. Like, there's this lack of information in both sides that it's not helping the equation. Nowadays, also there are websites, because this is legal. You can put links of illegal of illegal streams or pirated content. Uh, to say that somebody does something, it's legal. Like, you can tell, I know there's a drug dealer in the corner. That's legal. To sell drugs, obviously, is illegal. So with piracy, it's the same. You can distribute this information, but if you don't distribute the content, it's legal. Excuse me? So what's the future? Recent studies say that it's going to grow at 20%, the piracy. So next year, it's not going to stop. There's also a point sometimes in people who like to hack things and to, I mean, it's, and as I said, as there's also not a lot of culture toward rights and everything, it's like, oh, for me, it's fun. I'm going to try to break this. I'm going to get that. So it's something that it's not going to finish, basically. And now, how to fight piracy? One really cool technique that big content owners are applying is to apply invisible watermarking. So what you can do, you can get the iframes, and if you have like a user session ID, for example, you can put the numbers in each iframe with watermarking. And then you can get, I mean, for example, you get this from a illegal stream from the internet. So you start to analyze, you use your decryption software, and after checking the iframes, you can get the session ID or the user ID or whatever. Problem of this is that you need to do like in individual encoding. And normally this is something that only like really, really big content owners, they can afford. And also, it's not very environmental friendly to use those many servers to everybody. But for example, if you want to know or you want to know the area, like you can put a different watermarking for each country or things like that. Like it's a way of tracking that nobody is going to know that you are applying, and you can get to know if somebody is really hacking the stream. And as I said, hardware solutions, they are not useful. There's still in the industry people offering those services, companies saying, yeah, get my encryption, it's patented, nobody knows, it's not going to work. And here in the links, in fact, there's one of those kind of accounts in China where you can get thousands of TV channels. And as I said, when you only need one person to hack it, so the system is not going to work. The tokenization, it's been there for ages, and it's something that still works. It still works. Obviously, it can get hacked too, but what I think in the future is that when we have a huge or better internet speeds, we have new protocols and everything, maybe we can have more API calls, more server calls, and maybe you can add like a dynamic tokenization, do more checks. Obviously, this involves more money, more resources, and obviously it can add latency. And the coolest thing, and as we have seen the examples of La Liga, is when you get creative, when you think about crazy ideas, because maybe you implement one of that and it's a success. So these are, for example, my list of crazy ideas, like maybe a new video player that it has some encryption or something where you get connection of the user ID of that video player, and and you need that video player is like the only option to see your content. It can be something. To put tokens as metadata inside the video, inside the frames, or and the same idea of the watermarking, like maybe adding the tokens inside. As I said, the more continuous or the more continuous review or something more dynamic that it changes with time. In the same way of the CMCD, which is a new standard specific for observability of video streaming, they are adding information of each server of the CDN. They are adding in the URLs information of each step. So in the same idea, what if we add more tokens through the URLs or this kind of information following it? So if there's an option that you get the illegal stream, the same URL will tell you where does it come from. Or as the WebRTC server, the WebRTC protocol has several servers involved, what if we add this kind of tokenization or extra checks? So I leave this to you so you can get your own ideas, your crazy ideas, and try to do things. Another cool idea, and this I take this from the video game industry, is to be troll. So I remember, for example, in the game of The Witcher, you had an illegal copy. The main character had an eye patch as a pirate. So what if we troll the chunks? Like if we know someone is pirating, rather than kind of blocking and maybe they do something, what if we start to fail on purpose? And we start, for example, giving like the same chunk, like the same minute of the video, and it's maybe a live sports thing, and people get frustrated, like, no, it's the same, I already seen that. And this kind of troll idea, I think it can work and it can be fun. So people can get like the Groundhog Day of the video streaming. What are the solutions that we can see? And this, as we can see, it's the same as in real life. All the repressive solutions, if you fight with all your legal resources, all your expensive lawyers, it's not working. But for example, education and a good price, it seems to work. And as I said that we are following the same patterns of the music industry, this graphic represents the usage of music streaming platforms in the United States. And the red line is the piracy, the percentage of music piracy. And as you can see, piracy goes down and the music services start to work well. And we all are users from Spotify or Tidal or Deezer or whatever. And we are happy with that. And we don't lose time like trying to hack songs anymore. So we should think about that and do the same, because nowadays the most pirated content is video, TV shows and movies. So maybe we need to think about like how are we going to face it, or how are we going to think to solve the problem. Another thing, excuse me. Another thing is that piracy happens a lot of times because of the pricing. So the broadcasters, they said, oh no, I'm losing $1,000 million yearly because of piracy. That is fake. Like, you don't know if you had maybe a more lower price, maybe more people would get access to your content. So that's not really true. What you are really losing is potential customers. If you have 1 million pirates, that's 1 million people who are interested in your video content, but maybe you are not offering the correct price to that people. This is something that the big broadcasters and the big content owners, they need to do criticism with themselves. And they should be more transparent. As I said, nobody knows the flow of the money, the flow of the rights, who is getting really money when I do a click. They should be more transparent about that, and people get informed, because maybe, for example, you are a huge fan of an actor, but if it's transparent, and you know that when you are watching the content of that actor, he or she gets a certain amount of money, maybe you would say, okay, I'm not going to pirate this because I want to support this artist. And the conclusion, yeah, for the people who have seen El Marginal, it's an Argentinian TV show of in a prison, and one of the sentences of this character says, the bad people aren't so bad, but also the good ones aren't so good. So it's not that we need to go always against piracy, but also we cannot see the big broadcasters, the big media content owners as really bad people because they are producing something that we like and we enjoy. So there's that point where we need to balance and to think about how to face it. Sorry. Yeah, and also this presentation this year, I'm making a homage for somebody of the video industry, Manu Silva, who left us. He had mental issues, and I want to make a bit of awareness of the mental health. And even you don't know me, if you have something in your life and you need to talk, just catch me later, and I'm open to anybody, or you can write me on LinkedIn if there's something that you need to discuss. I'm open for you. And obviously, if you like the slides or you want to check the bibliography, to make it fun, I'm going to say that it's copyrighted. It's copyrighted, so if you want to download it, you are going to pirate my presentation, but here's the QR in case you want to check the slides. So, question time.
Thanks, Javi. Really interesting presentation. And later on, I'll tell you how I trolled the users that pirated my Android app a few years ago. I trolled them in a similar way, but I'll tell you later. Are there any questions for Javi?
Okay, so yeah, you said at that moment that you can link to other websites that have illegal content, but then are there like legislation or someone preventing to follow that link, like, or like watching anything on the web is kind of not punishable, right? Is the one that publish the illegal content that it's liable.
Exactly. As I said, it's the same as as with the drugs. Like, if you consume drugs, well, maybe they can arrest you, but most of the cases they go against the seller. So this is, as you said, the illegal part comes from the people who are doing the broadcasting, the people who are broadcasting that content. But in certain countries, they consider illegal to watch it if you are not paying for it. It depends on the country and the legislation. Or I know we have here, for example, the Polish crew from Software Mansion. In a job I had, I used to hack TV signals, in fact, for media purposes because we analyzed the audio and we sold information. But in Poland, for example, they have a law that it's an ancient law when it was a communist country, that if you broadcast private content, you can get into jail because the TV was like something very political, but it's still nowadays, and people are kind of hacking streams and everything, but it's like they are a bit scared. And the anecdote is that when I used to call data centers there to send my server, said, okay, you have rack space? Yeah, we have. And when I said, yeah, and do you have rooftop access? Yeah, we have. And then I said, I want to put a TV antenna or a satellite dish, and can you put me the cables to the server? And they stopped replying the emails. So Every country has their legislation, but in a lot of cases, if you are consuming pirated content, it's considered illegal.
And because sometimes it's hard to figure out because there are like websites that look like legit or whatever, so not always having a suggestive name. And the second one, you mentioned some tokenization. It's also kind of you tried there to cover the NFTs, or because I haven't seen, and at some point it was like a big noise on the net about NFTs protecting content like art.
Yeah, but the thing is that most of the NFTs work with blockchain technologies, and these kind of technologies, at least nowadays, they are not very useful for video streaming because it requires to get all the database, let's say. So in the case, if you want to apply that to video streaming, it requires that you have to do a lot of connection, and I think it's not going to work.
Any more questions for Javi? We have a few, so I'll start with Jose here.
Thank you very much. What do you think about the freemium models for live streaming? Like something like La Liga gives you a low quality version for free with propaganda or whatever, and then if you want to have a high quality, you have to pay.
I think they work pretty well, and it's in fact one of the solutions to kind of fight the system. Or it's also of the troll idea I have. Maybe you can do that. If you know somebody's pirating you, you give directly the low bit rate. But the kind of freemium models are really cool. And as I said, we need to get inspired by the audio industry because the history shows us that we are replying that. And in fact, the freemium models with audio work pretty well. So I guess in video, it's really interesting. Nowadays, and so, as some of you know, the video streaming is expensive. So that's why freemium models, depending on how much people get access for free, you need to think about. But for example, the fast TV channels, the free advertised stream television, it's growing a lot and it's working pretty well in economical terms. So that's one of the solutions.
What are the questions?
So, interesting presentation. Do you have any research on usability driving piracy or unusability driving piracy? That you can't find the thing you want. It's much easier just to get it on Pirate Bay. Like, is there a usability issue there as well?
When I did the research, that was one of the things I had the idea, but there's no information about it. In fact, sometimes piracy is a solution for content preservation. Like with all video games, all movies, like now we have a lot of content platforms, but if you want to watch a movie because you love cinema or you love a director, that movie from the 70s, you cannot find it. So it's really interesting. I think usability affects in the way, for example, as we said with the music industry, that if we have a Spotify, we are not going to lose that time on searching the pirated song or rip it from YouTube or whatever. But it's also the opposite at the same time, that for certain content preservation or for certain content access, you need to go illegal.
Time for one last question. I know, just one last question and we're done.
Hey, Javi. Quick comment for Tim's question. I agree. Sometimes there is a usability thing. I recall vividly the example of Formula One. They only had specific deals with specific broadcasters in specific countries, and everybody was sort of hoping, can I give you my money to watch this thing properly? And finally they did it, and I became a paying customer, happy one at that. Before that, pirating it was the only way sometimes, and it was very annoying. On to my question though. In your slide, you mentioned about in the video term, like support your a director you like or whatever. In the slide you showed about how the people paid more for their audio services and piracy went down. We also sort of know, I think, that artists don't get paid very well by Spotify and the likes. So how does that factor into that equation, you think?
The thing is that there's no transparency. So you don't really know how much are they getting paid. There are certain numbers, but it's still, but in this case, and this is curious, problem is not the DSP. It's the people who really own the rights, which are the majors, Sony, Universal, and Warner. Because you are the artist, and in fact, the money goes to the major, not always to the artist. Like when they say, no, Spotify is paying this amount for certain reproduction. That's not going to make, sometimes even not any penny goes to the artist. Like all the money goes to the major. There's a lot of people working in the video industry, a lot of marketing hipsters, and these people need to get paid.
Thanks, Javi.